or rather, you feel a great hollow space opening inside you. The cathedral stands complete, magnificent against the pale blue sky. It is a stranger to you now. It is a finished thing, and you are an unfinished one, slowly coming apart. It no longer needs your hands. It no longer needs your eye to spot a flaw in the stone, your knowledge of stress and load, your memory of where every single block was quarried from. It has taken everything you had to give, and now it has politely turned its back on you. It belongs to God. You work it for your daughter, who is taken by the flux. You work it because every smooth face, every perfect joint, is a small victory against the all-consuming dark. It is a prayer made not with your mouth, but with the strength of your back and the skill of your hands. This pillar will outlive your name. It will outlive the memory of your face, the sound of your voice, the existence of your great-grandchildren. Standing here, in the year 1287, you are touching the year 1500, the year 1800, the year 2020. This was a person. This person felt the sun on their skin, felt hunger in their belly, felt the sting of winter wind. They had a name, a voice, a history. Now there is only the silence of the bones. What world did these eyes see? A world without a single church spire piercing the sky. A world where the woods were not the kings, but a place of older, darker gods. The men are already making their decision. Cover it, the foreman says, his voice low and firm. God forgive us. Cover it and speak no more of it. You hold your breath, not out of reverence, but out of shock. This is the house of God, yes, but it feels more like the inside of his mind. Your small, hunched frame is a single, insignificant thought within it. You walk forward, craning your neck until it aches. The ceiling is a forest of carved stone, soaring so high into the gloom that it seems to be holding up the heavens themselves. You've spent your life in single-room huts with thatched roofs that leak when it rains. This is an insult to gravity, a small, victorious laugh in the face of power. You brush the stone dust from the caricature's fat cheeks. It's done. A petty, glorious human prayer carved in limestone. A secret that will outlive you, your children, and Gerard and all his stolen silver. You feel a smile spread across your face, a secret joy blooming in your chest. And then you hear the scrape of a leather boot on the wooden planking right behind you. The overseer's grunt is the only bell you need. It's a sound like stone grinding on stone, and it signals the end. You don't drop your mallet, you lower it, letting the worn wood slide through your palm. Your fingers, stiff and swollen, protest the very act of uncurling. A fine, pale dust, the ghost of the stone you've shaped all day, coats your eyelashes and fills the back of your throat. You swallow and taste the cathedral. His hand, cleaner than yours, drops 3 silver pennies into your open palm. The limestone dust, fine as flour, coats your tongue. It fills your nostrils, a dry, chalky perfume that you will carry to your grave. Your knuckles are raw, your wrist a knot of fire from the endless rhythmic tap-tap-tapping of mallet on chisel. For 3 days, you have been carving this one face, a leering demon destined for a high gutter, a creature meant to spit rainwater away from the sacred walls. But its mouth is wrong. It is a simple sneer, a brute's mockery, and you hate it. There is a final, grating screech from the winch, then a solid, satisfying thump that you feel more in your teeth than your ears. A silence falls over the square. The angel is in place. The last stone, the last piece of a puzzle that has consumed your youth, your strength, your friends, your very breath. A cheer erupts from the crowd that has gathered, a wave of sound that washes over you. Men throw their caps in the air. Women make the sign of the cross, their eyes wet. It is done. And you feel nothing. His cry was short, a brief tear in the fabric of the workday. They carried his body away, and his wife was given a handful of pennies for her trouble. The work did not stop. The sound of the hammers resumed before his blood was dry on the stones below. You look up at the vaulting ribs of the ceiling, arching into the shadows like the bones of a great whale. Is he there? Is the echo of his last breath trapped in the mortar? You do not work this stone just for the pennies. You work it for Thomas. One of the workers, a boy barely old enough to grow a beard, begins to whisper a prayer. He speaks of unbaptized spirits, of the pagan dead who cannot find rest, whose souls are trapped between worlds, forever clawing at the soil that holds them. They are a poison in the ground, a curse on any Christian structure built atop them. You do not share their immediate panicked superstition. You feel something else, a profound and unnerving quiet. You stare at the skull, at the fine lines spiderwebbing across its dome. You look at the teeth, worn down to nubs. The world outside is a symphony of mud and shouting, the stench of the tannery, the squeal of an ungreased cartwheel, the flat, damp gray of a northern sky. But then, you push open the heavy oak door, and the world ends. A new one begins. The air inside is 10 degrees colder, and it smells of old stone, melting beeswax, and something else, something high and clean, like incense clinging to the ghosts of 100 sermons. Your footsteps, so clumsy on the cobblestones, are now cannons firing into a vast, echoing silence. This is the medieval truth they don't teach you, that in this age of absolute faith, tucked away in the vast, collective projects of worship, were the fingerprints of the forgotten, tiny acts of defiance, hidden carvings of nagging wives, crooked bishops, and cheating merchants. They are the irreverent whispers of men who were told they were merely tools in God's grand design, who dared to carve a small piece of their own humanity into the walls. It is the medieval equivalent of a secret code, an Easter egg left for a future that would never know their names. And in the cold pit of your stomach, you know with absolute certainty which promise will be kept for you. One slip, one tremor from a muscle screaming with fatigue, and you will not have carved a holy man. You will have carved a leering fool, a blasphemy in stone for all eternity. It was watching your own hands transform from a boy's soft palms to gnarled, calloused tools, the knuckles swollen, the fingernails permanently broken. It was 1,000 small sacrifices laid at the feet of a single colossal ambition, an ambition that wasn't even yours, but the bishop's and his father's before him. You were just a pair of hands, a body, a cog in a machine that ground men into dust to raise a prayer to heaven. But for you and the others, the true plans are drawn in charcoal on a massive plaster slab laid on the floor, a language of lines and curves you have learned to read better than any book. Most of you cannot read the words the priest chants, but you can read this. An arch is a sentence. A vault is a paragraph. This whole cathedral is an epic poem, and you are writing one perfect, unchangeable word at a time. You remember Thomas, who fell from the high scaffolding last spring. Slowly, methodically, they clear more earth. The skeleton is not laid out flat, not respectfully facing east toward the rising sun as any good Christian soul should be. It is curled in on itself, in a tight crouch, knees drawn up to a chest that is no longer there. The skull is bent forward, its empty sockets staring into the earth it has held for how long? There is no shroud, no coffin, not even a single rusted nail to suggest one. Just the bones, stained the color of wet oak, alone in the dirt. Another cough is building in your chest, a gathering storm. You fight it, swallow it back down, your throat raw. You don't want your wife to wake. You don't want her to hear it. You don't want to hear it yourself. In the silence of the dying fire, your own ragged breath is the loudest sound in the world. A confession you can no longer keep. The taste of iron is on your tongue, and you know, with a certainty that freezes your soul, that the next cough is coming, whether you are ready for its verdict or not. It is about to commit a small, perfect act of blasphemy, a whisper of rebellion in the heart of the sacred. You begin to carve, not your official mark, but a new one. You give the face pinched, greedy eyes, a snout for a nose, a wide, complaining mouth, open as if haggling with God himself. It's crude, a child's drawing in stone, but it feels more true than any soaring archway you have ever raised. Chip by chip, Giraud's face emerges from the stone, a permanent testament to his rotten soul. A cough cuts through the noise of the street. It's a wet, ragged sound, coming from a man huddled in a doorway, his body wrapped in thin rags. It is the sound of winter, the sound of lungs filling with fluid, the sound of a life being unstitched, thread by thread. You look from his shaking form up to the towering stone edifice you are helping to create. One promises an eternity of peace. The other promises a short, brutal end. There is no you that exists apart from the stone. Your tired back, your aching shoulders, your scarred hands, they are not the price of your labor. They are the testament of it. You are the tool that uses the tools, and the perfection of this archway, this pillar, this sorrowful saint is the only measure of your worth in the eyes of God and man. Now, you lift the fine tracer, its point no bigger than a pinprick. You lean close, your breath clouding in the air, your shadow a giant on the wall behind you. It is time. You remember Henry, his face a white smear against the sky for a single silent moment before he fell from the north transept. That was 34 years ago. His wife still averts her eyes when she passes you in the street, as if the height itself was your fault. The work was not glorious. It was not holy. It was stone and rope and sweat and bread that never seemed to be enough. It was cursing the rain that made the wood slick and praising the Virgin when a falling hammer missed your head by an inch. Outside these rising walls, the world is a slurry of mud, dung, and fear. It is the domain of sudden fevers and suspicious neighbors, of prayers that go unanswered and bailiffs that always arrive on time. Life is a flickering candle, and the wind is always blowing. But in here, you are building a skeleton for God. You are imposing order on the chaos, a divine geometry. The master mason, a man who speaks more to stone than to people, unrolls a fresh parchment. For him, maybe. But it isn't stone. Thomas works the shovel again, more carefully this time, scraping away the dark, clumpy soil. A curved, pale shape emerges, like a sickened root. Then another next to it. You step closer, your leather boots sinking slightly into the mud at the edge of the new foundation. You see it now. They are ribs, a collective intake of breath. The men step back, their hands instinctively flying to make the sign of the cross over their chests. The whole, meant to be the holy footing for a new chapel, has become a grave. A universe that judges you is a universe that is paying attention. A God that punishes is a God that sees you. It is the alternative that is truly terrifying. The thought that this blood speck means nothing at all, that it is just a fraying thread in the meaningless tapestry of existence. You pull the rough wool blanket up to your chin, but the chill is inside you now. It has nothing to do with the night air seeping through the wattle and daub walls. It's the cold of isolation, the cold of shame. A thought, wicked and sharp as your chisel's edge, takes root. A secret, a joke between you and the Almighty. He sees everything, doesn't he? Surely, he sees the black heart of a merchant who cheats a poor man. Surely, he would appreciate the commentary. You shift your body, angling into the shadowed corner. The stone is cool against your hip. Your mallet feels different in your hand now. It is no longer a tool of the guild, but an instrument of your own. Your chisel is not shaping a saint or an angel. You are building it as a response to it. You carve the serene face of an angel because you have seen the tormented face of a man dying of the flux. You raise a stone vault to the heavens because you know the suffocating closeness of the grave. You create a space of silent, soaring beauty, not because the world is perfect, but because it is so profoundly, painfully not. The cathedral is not an escape. It's an argument in stone, against the chaos, against the filth, against the dying of the light. A falling stone you pushed a younger apprentice away from, a second of instinct that earned you a week of throbbing pain and the boy's undying loyalty. People, centuries from now, will invent a strange and luxurious idea: work-life balance. They will see their labor as something separate from themselves, a container of hours to be filled and then abandoned. For you, this concept is unthinkable. Your life is not separate from your work. It is your work. Your survival, your purpose, your very soul is earned through the body. You can almost feel the rough, reassuring weight of the mallet in your hand, the vibration traveling up your arm as you strike the chisel, the sharp, clean crack as a flake of limestone gives way. You remember the taste of stone dust in your water, in your bread, in your dreams. You remember the fear, a cold knot in your gut every morning as you looked up, up, up at the impossible height you had to climb. It does not feel the gnawing in its belly when the harvest fails. It will never wake in a sweat-soaked panic, listening for the rattling breath of a child in the next room. It does not grow old. It does not die. In a life defined by the frantic, desperate scramble for one more season, one more day, the stone is a promise. It is the only thing you have ever touched that feels like forever. To work it, to shape it, is to borrow a piece of its endurance for your own fleeting life. The shovel strikes with a dull thud that is not stone. It's a hollow, resonant crack that travels up the wooden handle and into the laborer's arms. He grunts, wiping sweat from his brow with a forearm already slick with it. The air is thick with the smell of turned earth, damp and ancient. a scent that clings to the back of your throat. Another man, his face a roadmap of sun and hardship, leans on his own spade and squints into the pit. "What is it, Thomas?" he asks, his voice rough as gravel. "Another cursed Roman stone? You try to make a deal, right here in the suffocating dark of your one-room life. You are trying to earn your way back to health. The idea that wellness is a thing to be deserved, a reward for virtue, is as natural to you as breathing. And the loss of it, a sign that you have failed a test you didn't even know you were taking. The belief is a strange comfort. It is better to believe you are being punished for a reason than to accept that the world is simply, terribly random. You look around. To your right, the rope and pulley system sits silent. To your left, old Gene is already halfway down the ladder, his knees groaning a prayer of their own. The sun is low, casting long, skeletal shadows across the nave roof. No one is watching. No one ever looks up here, at this high-shadowed cornice, tucked under the eaves. This piece of stone will face the sky and the rain for 1,000 years, and not a single soul will ever be close enough to truly see it. It is forgotten before it is even finished. This is the daily paradox of your life. You spend your waking hours in the sky, meticulously constructing a perfect, ordered heavenly space, a testament to the glory of God, crafted from logic and stone. And then you descend into this, a world that is messy, imperfect, and aggressively, stubbornly mortal. You look back, over your shoulder, at the half-finished cathedral. It rises from the filth like a promise. Its clean, white stones seem to judge the muck at their base. But you know the truth. You are not building it to escape this reality. You look down at your hands. They are a landscape, a map of your life etched in flesh. Calluses rise like hills on your palms. Scars crisscross your knuckles like dried riverbeds, and your nails are permanently broken, packed with the gray dust of the cathedral. Each imperfection is a verse in your history. That deep white line on your thumb, a slipped chisel during the carving of a gargoyle, a moment of inattention that nearly cost you the finger, the flattened nail on your left hand. You remember sketching the design for that demon on a piece of slate. So long ago, the boy who helped you grind the pigments is now a grandfather himself, with a stall in the market selling wizened apples. Your gaze drifts from the angel to the men. You see their muscles bunch and strain, the sweat darkening the linen on their backs. And for a moment, the ache in your own back is a ghost of a different pain, the searing burn of a rope cutting into your shoulder, the satisfying fire of a muscle used to its absolute limit. Your hand, raw and calloused, finds the finished pillar. You press your palm flat against its surface. The stone is cool, a deep and patient cold that sinks into your skin, soothing the day's heat from your bones. You lean your forehead against it, closing your eyes. The air still hums with the memory of 100 chisels, a fine white dust coating your tongue and the inside of your nostrils. But here, in the quiet of the finished column, there is only stillness, a profound, endless silence. This stone does not get sick. You are aiming for a perfection that man is not meant to achieve, because you are building a house for God. It's a dangerous bargain, offering your sin as a sacrifice. But as your hand closes around your chisel, the cold metal of familiar comfort, you know you will make it. You will make it every single day. They are looking at a man who has fallen out of God's favor. They are looking at walking evidence of sin. Their piety, once a comfort, is now a wall. You are on the outside, marked. You try to pray, but the words feel hollow in your mouth. How can you ask for mercy when you are the living proof of a judgment already rendered? You think of bargaining. You could promise to be better, to be more devout, to give more to the church, to crush every prideful or envious thought. Your eyes drift back down to the market. You can almost see the stall. The leering, pig-faced merchant, Gerode, the one who sold you boots last winter. The finest leather he'd sworn, his little eyes glinting. 2 weeks later, the soles, made of pressed leather dust and lies, dissolved in the winter mud, leaving you to wrap your feet in rags. The memory still burns, a small hot coal of injustice in your gut. You are a builder of monuments to the divine, yet in the world of men, you are powerless against a cheat with a silver tongue. His voice is just one thread in a tapestry of noise. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of an iron-rimmed cart on uneven cobblestones, the high-pitched wail of an infant from an overhead window. You hear a creak of wood above you, a familiar warning. You sidestep just as a woman shouts a cursory, "Gardyloo." A cascade of filthy water, gray and greasy, splatters on the stones exactly where you were standing. It smells of boiled turnips and old sweat. You don't look up. She doesn't look down. It is the way of things. You unroll the worn leather, and the scent of oiled metal and old sweat fills the cold air. The tools within are not mere objects. They are extensions of your will, a catechism of iron and wood learned over a lifetime. You select the heavy iron punch, its cold weight familiar in your palm. This is for breaking the stone's spirit. You reach for the claw chisel, its teeth sharp and ready. This is for smoothing its anger. Finally, the fine tracer, delicate as a needle. This is for giving a carved saint his mournful eyes. You've breathed in so much of the cathedral that you sometimes think you are turning to stone from the inside out. Across the square, it shimmers, a mountain of faith and bone, your life. You watch as a crew of boys, for they are all boys to you now, with their unlined faces and careless strength, operates the great winch. Their shouts are sharp, clear notes in the air, so different from the low thunder in your own chest. They are hoisting the last angel, Saint Michael, his sword raised against a carved, grotesque demon. What if the stranger in the water was the truth, and the boy everyone knows is the ghost? But as the bishop turns, his silk rustling as he leaves, you look back at your masterpiece, and a new thought, a clever and desperate one, forms in your mind, a prayer that is also an excuse. What if this pride isn't for you? What if the burning need for perfection, the drive to make every line flawless, is its own form of worship? You are not making this for your own name, which will be forgotten. You are making it for a glory so immense, it demands nothing less than your absolute prideful best. What if this sickness is a gateway, a punishment that will spread through your house like a moral plague? The shame is a physical weight, heavier than the fatigue that chains your limbs. It is the shame of being found unworthy. This is the hidden truth of illness. It isn't just your body that is failing, it is your character. In the market, you see how others look at you now. Their greetings are hurried. They stand a little farther away. It is not just the fear of catching the cough. It is the quiet, unspoken judgment. A cross with a short bar at its foot. It's clean, precise. It is the signature of your guild, the proof of your work. When the master mason comes, he will see it, nod, and your tally will be marked for payment. It says, "I was here and I was paid for it." But it says nothing of who you are, nothing of the ache in your back, or the wife who died in childbirth, or the gnawing hunger for something more than bread and boiled turnips. It is a number, not a name. This is the profane chaos you must walk through to get back to the small dark room you call home. A pig, its flank caked in mud, squeals and darts between your legs, chased by a boy with a stick. A merchant, his face red with effort, bellows his wares from a cart piled high with glistening, writhing eels. Fresh from the river, before the tanners poison it for the day. And you are doing it with a body that is turning, breath by breath, back into dust. The wood of the bench is a familiar complaint against your spine, a low groan that mirrors the one in your own bones. Decades have passed since you last felt the thrill of height, the precarious balance on a scaffold beam with the wind trying to steal the breath from your lungs. Now, the wind just finds the gaps in your woolen tunic and reminds you that you are old. The cough comes again, a wet, rattling houseguest who has long overstayed his welcome. It is the dust. 60 years of it. An endless, exhausting performance. You pull back from the bucket. The stranger has vanished, replaced by the mundane reflection of the gray sky. You are who the village says you are, the Fletcher's son, the quiet one. It is a simple, brutal comfort. You know your place. You know your duties. You know your name. But as you pick up the heavy bucket, the water sloshing against the sides, a thought, cold and sharp as the well water, slips into your mind. A thought you have never had before. What if the story they tell is wrong? The bishop speaks of serving God, but in this moment, you feel like his equal, a creator, a man who can conjure a beauty from nothing but pressure and skill. A beauty this powerful man could only buy, never make. The thought is so thrilling it terrifies you. You can feel the devil whispering at your ear, telling you the work is yours, the glory is yours. You will confess it later in the dark of the booth, your whisper lost with 100 others. You will ask for penance for the pride that burns in your chest right now. The priest says it every Sunday, his voice echoing off the cold church walls. God sees the rot in the apple, the worm in the soul. This cough, this blood, is his finger pointing from the heavens, directly at you. You look at your wife, sleeping on the other side of the cottage, her breath a soft, even rhythm. You look at your son, curled near the embers for warmth. A new fear joins the first. What if your sin has tainted them? Your world for 10 hours a day is the smell of lime mortar, the grit of stone dust under your fingernails, and the patient, unending face of this cathedral wall. This house for God, a project that began with your grandfather and will likely be finished by your grandson if the plague or the French don't take him first. You've just finished. You run a calloused thumb over the carving. Not the gargoyle you spent a week on, its mouth agape to spit rain and ward off demons. No, a simple official mark. The warm, honest smell of baking bread from the communal oven clashes with the sharp, ammoniac sting of a dung heap steaming in the sun. You breathe in the stink of wet dogs, the sour rot of discarded cabbage leaves, and the chemical bite of the tanner's yard, where hides are being scraped and cured in vats of urine and lime. A wave of cheap, sweet ale washes out from a tavern door propped open with a rock, mingling with the ever-present, dusty smell of unwashed humanity. This is the town, a silent boast to the other masons who will come after you, centuries from now, to repair your work. It is a single, defiant claim whispered into the void of time. Ego feci. I made this. You run a finger along the parchment's edge, the lines a promise of the work to come. The fine white dust settles on your hand, the same dust you breathe. You are building a house that may stand for 1,000 years, a monument of eternal stone for an eternal God. And as the boy raises the mallet to strike again, this time on his own, you hear it, a small, dry cough that he tries to swallow. It is a tiny sound, almost nothing, but you know it. It is the sound of the stone. It is the dust claiming its own. It is the same sound your master made in his final years, a quiet prophecy of the price this sacred knowledge demands. You tremble at the thought of the final judgment, when your every deed is weighed and your name is read from the book of life. Theirs is a different terror, a judgment that is not final, but constant. It is the fear of the wrong photo, the awkward phrase, the digital silence that follows a heartfelt post. They will not worry if they are a good person in the eyes of God. They will worry if they look like a good person in the eyes of everyone else. Their reputation is not a matter of soul work, but of profile work. You see the impossible curve of a saint's robe, the delicate arch of a stone petal, so thin it seems it might shatter in the wind. You did that. Not God, not the bishop with his Latin and his gold. You, your hands, calloused and cracked, took a dead piece of rock and taught it how to fly. You bent the stubborn earth to your will and made it beautiful. This knowledge is a sin, a deep and terrible one. It is the first sin, the one that cast angels out of heaven. The true cause is sin. Your mind becomes a frantic courtroom, and you are both prosecutor and accused. You search the ledger of your days for the transgression that earned this punishment. Was it the flash of envy you felt when you saw your neighbor's new cow, fat and sleek? Was it the moment of pride when the reeve praised your stonework? Or was it a darker thing, a thought that flickered in your heart for but a moment? A secret stain you thought was known only to you. God sees all. The wind is a thief up here. It plucks at your woolen tunic and tries to steal the breath from your lungs. Below you, the city is a child's scattered playthings, the cramped rooftops, the thread of the river, the ant-like figures swarming the market square. You are closer to God than to them, perched on this web of raw timber scaffolding, with a mallet in one hand and a chisel in the other. You move without thinking, a lifetime of climbing etched into your muscles, but your legs still tremble from the strain of balancing on a narrow plank, 100 feet above the ground all morning. The world rushes up to meet you. The perfect geometry dissolves into a chaotic mess of crooked timber and leaning walls. The sacred silence shatters. Your feet touch the street, and the world envelops you. It's not a place, it's an assault. The air is thick enough to chew, a foul stew of 1,000 lives lived too close together. You are untethered, a strange and vital piece of flotsam on the river of the world, forever traveling, forever an outsider. Before your work in this town is done, you will find a place, a stone on the hidden side of an arch, or high in the triforium, where only God and the pigeons will look. You will take a piece of chalk or the sharp edge of your chisel, and you will leave your mark. It's not a name, it is a symbol, a cross, a fish, an hourglass. It is a fragile inheritance, a flickering candle flame passed from one generation to the next in the great windy dark of the world. You look from the boy's shining face to the tiny, perfect mark he has made on the vast, unfeeling block of stone. For a single dizzying moment, you feel the weight of every mason who came before you, and everyone who will come after. A cathedral of ghosts standing right here, in this sliver of sunlight. They will carry black, shining rectangles in their pockets that show them their own face 100 times a day. They will not be given an identity. They will be forced to build one. They will choose the angle of their jaw, the brightness of their eyes, the cleverness of their words, and present this curated stranger to the world as me. They will become architects of their own faces, their own stories, and they will discover a new kind of anxiety, a torment you cannot possibly conceive of. Your great fear is your soul's reputation before an unseen God. You play the part of the humble stonemason, a simple tool in the hands of the divine, but your heart is a traitor. It is not humble. It is a wild, roaring thing, swollen with an emotion so vast and dangerous, you dare not give it a name. Pride. You feel it in the ache of your shoulders and the permanent grit beneath your fingernails. You look away from the bishop, and your eyes land on the rose window you are carving. The village healer, a woman with eyes as old as the forest, came yesterday. She smelled of wood smoke and chamomile. She pressed her cool, dry fingers to your forehead and spoke of an imbalance. "Too much phlegm," she murmured, "a cold and wet humor dominating your system." She prescribed hot, dry things, mustard plasters to draw the sickness out, a broth of pepper and onions to stoke your internal fire. You drink the broth, you suffer the burning plaster. But you know this is only a mortal ritual. You are treating a symptom, not the cause. And you can feel, in the quiet moments after the ale is gone, that both are beginning to fray. You see the world as God must see it, a perfect geometric pattern of rooftops, alleys, and walls, the great logical skeleton of your city. Your work is here. Your purpose is here. In the patient curve of the arch, the silent prayer of the buttress reaching for the sky. But the bell means descent. Your hands, calloused and cracked, find their familiar grip on the rough-hewn ladder. It sets you apart from the men who till the fields, the men who will be born, live, and die within the sound of a single church bell. You have no village. Your allegiance is not to a lord, but to the guild. Your identity is not a family name, but a set of tools and a secret language spoken in handshakes and chalk marks. You are a wanderer, a necessary ghost, summoned to a town to build its heart and then dismissed to the road again. You see the unbroken chain, stretching back into the darkness of time, master to apprentice, hand to hand, breath to breath. This is the only immortality you will ever know, not in the stone, which will outlast your name, your bones, your memory, but in this, in the passing of a secret. The knowledge is not in a scroll, or a book, or in the sermons of the priest. It lives in the muscle of the forearm, the instinct of the eye, the soul of the hand. Its purity is your life's work. You wonder about the people of the future, a strange, unsettling thought. Will they know their own faces? Will they see them so often they grow tired of them? You imagine a world filled with perfect, unbreakable reflections, a world where a person could look at themselves whenever they wished. It seems a terrible and powerful magic. To have such knowledge, what would it do to a person? They will live in a hall of infinite mirrors. He moves like a man who has never had to hurry, his hands pale and unscarred. a jewel on his finger catching a stray sunbeam like a trapped star. He speaks, and his voice is as smooth as his robes. He talks of the glory of God, of the virtue of humility, of how this great cathedral is not the work of men, but the work of faith. You nod, your head bowed, the rough wool of your tunic scratching your chin. You murmur the correct responses. Yes, Your Grace. And for the glory of God, Your Grace. It's a different kind of fear than the dread of a bad harvest or the terror of a wolf's howl in the dark. This is a holy fear, an intimate terror. Your hand, calloused from the plow and the axe, trembles as you draw it to your chest, as if you could hold the sickness in, keep it from escaping. In your world, the world of damp earth and flickering faith, this red speck is not a message from your body. It is a message from God. Across the room, an old mason, a master who taught Eves everything he knows, is seized by a cough. It's a deep, rattling, wet sound that seems to come from the bottom of his soul, a sound full of shattered stone and years of dust. Every head in the lodge turns for a moment, then quickly turns away. You are a free man, but your freedom is only as strong as the sinews in your arm and the cartilage in your knee. The bell's vibration hits you through the soles of your worn leather boots, a deep, resonant hum that travels up the scaffolding, through your bones, and into your teeth. Midday, the sun is a white coin at the peak of the sky, and for a moment, suspended between heaven and earth, you feel like a saint in a stained glass window. Up here, the air is thin and clean. The wind speaks in whispers, carrying only the scent of cut stone and the distant, sharp smell of the river. And then you see the counterthrust, the elegant defiance of the pointed arch, shunting that colossal weight sideways, downwards, into the earth. You understand the miracle of the ribbed vault, a stone skeleton that allows the walls to dissolve into curtains of colored glass. You see how the flying buttress, an arm of stone leaping through the open air, catches the impossible weight and pins it to the ground, a silent, graceful wrestler. This knowledge is your passport and your cage. It sings when you cut it true. He squeezes his eyes shut. You guide the strike, a tiny movement of your own wrist teaching his. Tink. The sound is clean, high and clear. Perfect curl of limestone falls away. The boy's eyes snap open, wide with disbelief. A slow smile spreads across his face, a thing of impossible, brilliant light in the dusty workshop. You see it then, not just the boy. You see your own ghost, a terrified child with clumsy hands standing in this very spot 30 years ago. A looking glass is a thing of myth, a sorcerer's tool. You have heard whispers of them, small, cloudy discs of polished bronze or silver, treasures for a queen's private chamber, costing more than this entire village will earn in a year. The priest says to gaze upon your own reflection is to court the sin of pride, to invite the devil to whisper vanities in your ear. Your face is God's business, not yours. Your concern is for the state of your soul, that invisible, eternal thing that no reflection could ever show. Its blemishes are what you fear. The scent arrives before the man. A cloud of frankincense and myrrh, so thick and holy, it feels like it should scour the dust from the air. It doesn't. It only hangs there, a ghost of heaven in a world of sweat, raw timber, and cold stone. Then he appears, a river of purple silk flowing through the chaos of your worksite. The bishop. His shoes are soft leather, silent on the stone chips that crunch under your own worn-out boots. The cough comes again, a tremor that starts deep in your ribs and claws its way up your throat. You turn your head from the pallet of straw and spit toward the hearth. The glob of phlegm sizzles on the hot stone, and in the fire's unsteady light, you see it. Not just the gray and yellow of sickness, but a single bright blossom of red, a speck of blood. It is no bigger than a pinprick, but it is as vast as the sky. Fear, cold and sharp, cuts through the dull ache in your bones. It will outlast you. It may outlast the king. You finish your bread and drain the last of the ale. The firelight dances across the scarred faces of the men around you. Men from Normandy, from Wales, from the heart of England. All of you, bound by a craft, chasing the great building projects across the land like migrating birds. You are free. But as you look at your own hands, at the map of scars and the thickened skin over each knuckle, you understand the cost. Your body is your only currency. Your health is your entire fortune. Give him a soul, so he can remind every man who looks up at him of the cost of pride. Make him part of the story. He leaves you there, high above the world, and as you lift your mallet, the stone no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a promise. You are not just chipping away at a rock. You are speaking a single, silent word in a prayer that will not be finished for 200 years. This is the cathedral's soul, laid bare. In this age, to read words on a page is a form of sorcery known by few, but your literacy is rarer still. The parish priest can read his Latin, but he cannot read this. He looks at a wall and sees a surface for a fresco. You look at the same wall and see a battle. You see the downward crush of gravity, the immense, stubborn weight of the stone, wanting only to fall back to the earth. His last master, a weaver in Amiens, was said to use a hot spindle for correction. You remember your own master, a brute named Henri, who taught you with curses and blows, whose greatest lesson was that pain is a loud but useless teacher. You will not be him. You will not pass that poison down the line. Again, you say softly. You put your hand back over his, your skin a roadmap of old cuts and healed burns against his pale youth. Close your eyes, boy. Don't look. Listen, the stone will tell you when it's right. You are the boy with the quick, clever hands, good for trimming goose feathers, but clumsy with an axe. You are the quiet one, the lad who watches the older men at the alehouse, their booming laughter, a foreign language you have yet to learn. These are not opinions. They are facts, as solid as the stone of the church and as unchangeable as the turning of the seasons. Your identity is a garment woven by the hands of your community, your family, your priest, your Lord. You wear it every day. It is your shield and your cage. As the last note of a distant choir practice fades into the stone, you are left with one cold question. In this great book of God, who will ever read the story of your life? It is the primal, ancient fear of a creature of the day, trapped in the domain of the night, praying for the dawn. You stare into the heart of the low-glowing embers, a tiny, defiant sun in the suffocating emptiness. And you wonder if the things you fear are only outside the door, or if the true darkness is the one that awakens inside you when there is nothing left to see. In a world of abstract loyalties, to kings you'll never see and a God who feels impossibly far away, this is the only truth that feels real. An honest, brutal, and simple transaction. You trade a piece of your life's strength for the means to live another day. There is no stock market, no digital number on a screen that tells you your worth. Your worth is felt in the burn of your muscles and the solid weight of coin in your hand. It is measured in the clean, perfect line of a finished wall. You built that. It is real. But looking at Thomas, at the quiet certainty in his eyes, you understand it is not madness. It is a different kind of time, a different kind of legacy. It is an act of faith so profound it feels like a physical weight in the air, a belief that the future is worth building even if you will not be there to inhabit it. He picks up your chisel, places it back in your hand, and closes your fingers around it. Now, he says, his voice once more the familiar rasp of command. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. He gestures with a calloused hand, and you draw near. 4 rough-cut stones weight the corners of a rolled sheepskin parchment. He nudges one stone aside, and with a sound like dry leaves skittering, the blueprint unrolls. It is not a picture. A child or a nobleman might expect a drawing of a grand building with towers and saints. This is not for them. This is for you. It is a web, a spider silk trap of lines, arcs, and angles, so intricate it seems to vibrate on the page. This is the divine language, the grammar of God's house. We stare up at our skyscrapers, our satellites, our invisible networks that span the globe. And in their awesome, inhuman complexity, we feel a flicker of that same hope, that same terror. We ask the same ancient human question you asked yourself, dizzy with height and exhaustion, high on your wooden perch. Was it worth it? Did I make something that will last? The stone remembers what the blood forgets. He is barely 13, his world composed of bread, God, and the terrifying weight of your approval. You guide his hand to the stone, angling the chisel's sharp tongue. Now, tap it, not with your arm, with your fist. He swings the mallet. The sound is a dead, clumsy thud, a sickening crunch. A shard of stone flakes off, jagged and wrong. The boy's face crumbles, his eyes welling with the hot tears of shame. He expects the sting of a switch or the back of your hand. You have no way of knowing. You've seen your face so rarely, it feels like a memory of someone else's dream. You try to hold the image, to study the lines and shadows, but a breath of wind skitters across the surface and shatters him into 1,000 dancing pieces of light. He is gone. In this world, you are not a face you see in the morning. You are a story told by others. You are Thomas, son of John the Fletcher. It is a sermon in stone, and its message is brutally, terrifyingly clear. You feel it all at once, the awe at God's majesty and the terror of his wrath, the sense of belonging to this grand, eternal story, and the chilling realization of your own fragile, temporary part in it. The saints in the glass will outlive your children's children, their colors just as bright. The demons in the stone will still be torturing sinners long after your bones are dust. The cathedral was built to last forever. You were not. Stories of saints who faced down the darkness with faith, and stories of foolish men who wandered into it and were never seen again. Tonight, the wind sounds different. It carries a howl that seems almost human. You pull the blanket up to your chin, the rough wool scratching your skin. The candle gutters, threatening to plunge you into that total, terrifying black. Every creak of the house's timber frame is a footstep. Every whisper of the wind is a voice. The fear is a physical thing, a cold knot in your stomach. Yves snorts into his ale, and then he walked back to his chambers, which have a glazed window and a private garderobe. My pride can't afford glass. I wonder what the devil thinks of that. You listen, and you eat. You look at the 2 silver coins left in your palm. They are not an idea. They are the weight of the 100 blocks of limestone you lifted today. They are the ache in your spine made metal. They are the taste of this bread, the heat of this fire, the fleeting safety of this room. And you, he looks at you, and for the first time you see past the harsh master to the old man. You see the flicker of a terrifying, profound hope. This cathedral will not be finished in your lifetime, nor your son's or his. The thought is so alien it makes your head spin. To pour every drop of your sweat, every ounce of your skill, your entire life into a project you will never see completed. It is a madness, a rejection of the very rhythm of the human life, which is born, labors, and dies. The chatter of the world outside dies, muffled by walls of raw, unfinished stone. Here there is only the scrape of a tool, the cough of a fellow mason, the heavy silence of concentration. This is a holy place, but its God is not the one praised in the choir. Its God is number. Its theology is geometry. The master of works, a man whose face is a roadmap of sun and worry, stands over a long trestle table. He doesn't greet you with words. Words are for priests and merchants. We tell ourselves we are rational, that we have banished the superstitions that clung to you like the damp fog of the marsh. But we still pour our lives into projects we will never see completed. We still sacrifice our sleep, our health, our time with loved ones to leave a mark against the vast, terrifying indifference of the universe. We may no longer build for God in the same way, but we are still building against oblivion. His knuckles are white, his grip so tight the life has gone out of it. No, you say, your voice rough as unfinished granite. You reach out and pry his fingers open, one by one. They are small, the skin still soft, the bones as fragile as a bird's. You place your calloused, scarred hand over his, repositioning his grip. Not like you're strangling a chicken, like you're holding a woman's hand. Firm, so she knows you're there. Gentle, so she knows you mean no harm. He doesn't understand the comparison, of course. The water in the oak bucket is still for a moment. Cold seeps through the rough-spun wool of your tunic as you lean over, the splinters of the rim digging into your palms. The scent of damp earth and iron-rich well water, pulled from the belly of the world, fills your nose. And then you see him, a stranger. His face wavers, a ghost trapped beneath the surface. He has your father's heavy brow, the same one that furrows when the weather turns or the tithe is due. He has your mother's sharp chin. But his eyes, are they yours? Beside him, a liar's tongue is being pulled from his jaw by a creature with a dozen eyes. You stare, mesmerized by the horror. You've seen death. You've seen disease. But this is different. This is not the simple end of a life. This is the eternal consequence of a life badly lived. The beauty of the saints shows you the promise of heaven. This is the invoice for hell. It is a masterpiece of fear, designed to keep your head bowed, your tithes paid, your soul in line. The soft breathing of your sister, curled under the same coarse blanket as you. But beneath it all is a silence so absolute, so heavy, that it has its own sound. We, in our future world, have forgotten this kind of silence. We have forgotten this kind of dark. A blackness so complete, it feels like a physical weight on your eyelids. It is a darkness that erases the world, leaving you alone with only the frantic eating of your own heart and the stories you tell to keep the greater fear at bay. God won't be sitting under it, someone grunts from down the table, and a ripple of grim laughter follows. The conversation shifts, as it always does, from the stone that gives you life to the women who make you feel alive. Whispers of a barmaid's smile, a baker's daughter's glance, the eternal, frustrating mystery of the other half of the world. Then, inevitably, to the foolishness of the powerful. Father Michael preached for an hour on the sin of pride, the apprentice says. His voice still clean. Said it was the devil's favorite tool to lead good men astray. Scaffolding climbs like a wooden parasite up the stone piers. Far below, you can see men like ants, hauling timber and mixing mortar. Above, there is nothing but the raw, indifferent sky, where a vaulted ceiling will one day be. You think you will see this finished? He gives a dry, rattling chuckle. Foolish boy. I laid my first stone here when your father was still chasing girls at the spring fair. My own father laid the foundations you stand on, stones no man will ever see again. He is in this wall. I will be in this wall. You descend from the sky. Up there on the wooden bones of the scaffolding, the wind is a constant sermon, and the world is a map of fields and rivers below. But down here, you enter the stonecutter's lodge, and the world shrinks to the size of this room. This is your real church. The air is not holy with incense, but thick with the fine white powder that clings to your eyelashes and ghosts into your lungs. It's a slow poison, a sacrament of the craft. It smells of chipped flint, wet limestone, and a grim, undeniable purpose. It remembers the quiet, desperate prayer you whispered when the wind whipped at the scaffolding and you thought you would fall. It remembers your pride. It remembers your fear. It remembers the human cost of reaching for the divine. And us? Have we truly evolved? We build our own cathedrals now, of silicon and gleaming steel, of algorithmic code and flows of capital. We chase our own colder forms of immortality through data clouds and digital footprints, hoping a server in a distant, air-conditioned room will remember us. You don't need to look up to know it's the boy. He has been standing there for the better part of an hour, silent as a church mouse, radiating a fear so pure it has its own smell, sharp and sour like unripened apples. You set the mallet down. The silence that follows is heavier than the tool. You hold out the chisel to him, handle first. Thomas. His name is a quiet command. He flinches, then takes it. It is too big for him, a weapon in the hand of a child. How long until your own bones are a silent, nameless secret unearthed by hands in a world you cannot possibly imagine? You trace their forms, understanding the virtues not as ideas, but as people, as silent stone neighbors. This is your education. This is your library. But this library has a dark corner, a section written not to inspire, but to terrify. Near the exit, by the font where you were baptized, the carvings change. The faces are no longer serene. They are twisted in agony. Here, a demon with the wings of a bat and the face of a goat shoves a greedy merchant into a cauldron of boiling lead. His mouth is a silent, stone scream. You hold a rag to your mouth when you have to step outside for a moment, praying the foul spirits in the air do not find a home in your lungs. You believe this as surely as you believe the sun will rise. It is not superstition. It is the known science of your time. The darkness is not empty. It is full. You listen. You hear the scuttling of a rat in the thatch above, the low moan of the wind as it presses against the wooden shutters. This is your reward. You tear the bread with your teeth. It is work to chew, but it fills the howling emptiness in your gut. The ale is thin, but it washes away the dust. The talk is a low rumble, the only music in the room. It's a language of stone, of angles, of stress and support. Garrett's new arch on the south transept, the keystone is too light. Eves mutters, not looking at you. It will hold through winter, but when the spring rains come and the ground softens, God help the choir. He learned this language from a man whose hands were just as calloused, who learned it from another, a chain of secret knowledge, of sacred geometry and whispered lore, stretching back through the centuries. Back to the men who saw the great Roman ruins and dared to build something that would reach even higher. He is teaching it to you now. Your hands, stained and sore, are the newest link. We don't build this for us, he says, his gaze lifting from your small demon to the vast, skeletal emptiness of the cathedral around you. You can only watch, frozen, as it tumbles end over end, a tiny dark speck against the vast, indifferent sky. It shrinks into nothing, then strikes the ground with a distant, insignificant thud. Down below, no one looks up, no one screams, no one even seems to notice. You are utterly, terrifyingly alone, suspended in the air, with only your skill, your faith, and the gnawing certainty that one wrong step, one careless breath, will erase you completely from the world. Light, the very same light, still floods the nave, turning dust motes into a golden scripture. The bells you helped to hoist still speak to the sky, their iron tongues telling a story of permanence. And the stone, in its silent, patient way, holds you. It remembers the shock of the cold on your knuckles in the winter dawn. It remembers the precise pressure of your hand, the steady, metronomic rhythm of your mallet, the salt of your sweat dripping from your brow. The mallet feels like a third hand, an extension of your arm you've known longer than your own wife. The chisel is its voice. With each tap, a measured breath of sound, a puff of white dust, rises like a prayer. You aren't looking at the stone anymore. You haven't had to for 20 years. You feel the shape of the saint's robe under the surface, listening for the line of the fold, the curve of the drape. It speaks a language only your hands understand. A shadow falls over your work. They are the same hands that built the Roman walls, the same hands that knapped the flints of the people before them, the same hands as the man curled in the earth beneath your feet. You are a temporary guest in a world that belongs to the dead, and as you turn to walk away, you can't shake the feeling that the ground itself is breathing, a slow, deep sigh of all the lives it has swallowed. How long until the chapel they are building is just another ruin for future men to puzzle over? They are not just tales for children. They are history, frozen in 1,000 shards of light, held together by veins of dark lead. The window does not just tell the story, it makes the story true. The entire building is a book, and you are its most avid reader. Your gaze travels from the windows to the pillars. Carved into the capital of the nearest one is a woman, her face serene, holding a set of scales. Justice. On the other side, a figure with a lion at her feet. Courage. Not just the cutpurse lurking in the unlit alley, or the drunken soldier stumbling from the tavern. Those are worldly dangers. The true terror of the night is otherworldly. The priest tells you that this is when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest, when demons, denied the holy light of the sun, can slip through keyholes like smoke and whisper temptations into a sleeper's ear. They say the air itself, the night air, is a poison, a miasma that carries sickness and plague on its silent currents. You find a space on a bench between a grizzled Breton named Eve, whose hands are gnarled into permanent claws around an imaginary chisel, and a young apprentice from Kent, whose face still holds the ghost of his mother's cooking. You push one of your pennies across the rough-hewn table. It vanishes and is replaced by a wooden trencher holding a thick slice of bread, dark, dense, and heavy as a prayer book. A wedge of hard yellow cheese sits beside it, sweating salt. A moment later, a tankard of ale is slammed down, its watery contents sloshing over the rim. It is almost identical to yours, but the corner turns down, not up. A minute fractional change. You see? The curve of the lip. It shows defiance, not malice. It shows the pain of a choice made an eternity ago. Remember, this demon is a servant of the story, not its master. He is not just teaching you how to carve stone. He is teaching you to read a language older than words, a theology written for the eyes of God and the unlettered peasant alike. Out of its pale face, you are coaxing the grimace of a demon, a gargoyle meant to scream silently at the real evils of the world, scaring them away from this holy place. You are giving a monster a face, chipping away at God's own stone to create a warning against godlessness. The irony is as sharp and cold as your chisel. A sudden, violent gust of wind whips around the corner of the tower. It snatches the wooden mallet from its leather loop on your belt. You don't even have time to grab for it. You are long gone. Your name is a whisper the wind has forgotten. Your bones have long since surrendered to the earth. The secret smiling face you carved on the hidden side of a gargoyle, a private joke between you and your God, has been scoured smooth by centuries of rain. It is seen now only by the pigeons, but the cathedral stands. It has breathed through the smoke of wars you could never imagine, felt the tremors of revolutions that overturned worlds, and endured the slow, grinding teeth of time that devoured you whole. It lands on the dusty surface, blooming instantly, a tiny, horrifying flower in a desert of white. Every hammer on the site seems to fall silent at once. The air, once thick with work and purpose, is suddenly thin and sharp and filled with a terrible, listening quiet. They thought they would last forever. Their roads, their walls, their gods, all dust. A wave of vertigo washes over you. You are not the pinnacle of history. You are just another layer of soil. Your own life, your prayers in the new chapel, your loves and your fears, they are all just sediment, slowly compacting under the weight of time. The men are building a house for God, but they are building it on a foundation of forgotten humanity. You look at your own hands, the dirt caked under your fingernails. There is Adam, his hand reaching for the fruit, his face a mask of foolish innocence. There is Noah, his beard a cascade of white glass, herding animals of emerald and gold onto a ship of brown. You see the Virgin, her halo a perfect circle of sun, her sorrow so beautifully rendered in weeping blue that you feel a lump form in your own throat. You know these stories. You've heard them whispered by the fire, shouted from the pulpit, but you have never seen them. Now they are real. To let them burn too bright is to risk a fine, or worse, a fire that could devour the whole street. This is the razor's edge you live on every night. Your only light is a single, sputtering tallow candle, its wick drowning in its own foul-smelling fat. It casts long, monstrous shadows that writhe on the wattle and daub walls. A flicker makes your father's sleeping form look like a shrouded corpse. A gust of wind down the smoke hole makes the shadows leap and dance like devils in a frenzy. This is what you fear. You are something else, something new and dangerous. A man whose only master is his skill. A man who can leave. The Mason's Lodge is a long, low-roofed building of timber and hope. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of sweat, stewed onions, and wet straw. A fire roars in the central hearth, pushing back the encroaching chill. This is your brotherhood, a fraternity of calloused hands and tired eyes. The curve of the lip. What is it saying? You mumble. It's a demon, master. It's malicious. Thomas shakes his head slowly, a geological event in itself. Malice is for men, boy. Malice is easy. Any brute can carve a sneer. That thing, he taps the stone, his touch surprisingly gentle, is not a brute. It is a fallen angel. It remembers heaven. Its crime was pride, not hatred. He takes a piece of charcoal from his belt. With a few deft strokes on a spare block, he draws a new line for the mouth. It's a dry, shallow thing, the rasp of stone dust grinding against the soft parts of you. A souvenir from the very rock you shape. Your master, old Thomas, calls it the Mason's Whisper. It is, he says, a gentle reminder from the earth that what you take from it, it will one day take back from you. You feel the truth of that in your bones, a slow gathering debt. You turn your gaze to the block of limestone before you, half carved. The sun begins to dip behind its towers, casting a long, sharp shadow that stretches across the square, creeping over the cobblestones, over the legs of the bench, until it swallows you whole. You are sitting in the shade of your own life's work, and all you feel is cold. What is left of the stonemason when the last stone has been laid? His hands are soft, but already crosshatched with the first angry red cuts of the trade. You thank him, your voice a rasp of stone dust. You watch him as he walks away, a thin boy in a world that eats thin boys for breakfast. You see him stumble slightly, catching his balance on a block of uncut limestone. He coughs, a small, wet sound that is immediately swallowed by the immensity of the space. But you saw it. Against the stark white of the limestone, a single, bright red drop has fallen from his lips. The land is not empty. It is a library of the dead, and every volume is written in bone. You live on top of ghosts. You walk over them every day. The very stones of your town were pulled from the ruins of the old Roman city, their strange letters and chipped carvings a constant, silent reminder of a world that was once greater, grander, and is now nothing but a quarry for your own fleeting age. You see the half-crumbled aqueducts marching across the valley, skeletal remains of an empire so vast you can't even comprehend its scale. You stand in the center of the nave, and the sun, finally breaking through the clouds, ignites the great rose window. The air explodes into color. A river of ruby red and sapphire blue spills across the stone flags, painting your worn leather shoes and rough-spun tunic in the colors of kings and saints. It is a light so pure, so divine, it feels like it could wash the sin from your skin. Your eyes adjust and you begin to read, not with letters, but with light. Each pane of glass is a page. The great oak and iron gate of the town groans shut behind a final cart, the sound of the massive bolt sliding home echoing like a death knell. The world has just shrunk. It is no longer a town, a country, a kingdom. It is this single, small room you share with the sleeping shapes of your family. You huddle on a stool near the hearth, where the embers of the day's fire are banked and covered, glowing like a dragon's dying eye. To let them go out is to invite a deeper cold, a more profound darkness. Peasants, their faces caked with the same dirt that will one day cover them, trudge towards their wattle and daub hovels. They look at you, and you at them. There is no envy, only a kind of mutual incomprehension. Their lives are bound to the soil, to the seasons, to the whims of the Lord who owns them, body and soul. Their suffering is a flat, endless field. Yours is a scaffold, a precarious climb with a long way to fall. You are not one of them. You are not the Lord in his drafty castle either. His face, when you finally dare to glance at him, is a cathedral in itself, a geography of deep carved lines, weathered by 100,000 days of sun and wind and freezing rain. He doesn't speak. He just watches, and the silence is a louder judgment than any curse. Finally, a gnarled finger, its nail yellowed and thick as horn, points to the demon's mouth. There, he rasps, his voice the gravel of a riverbed. You flinch, expecting the familiar tirade about wasted stone, wasted time. Instead, his voice softens, a bare whisper of its usual roar. You see the baker's chimney puffing out its ghost of warm bread, a thread of smoke against the gray wash of the sky. You see the glint of the river, a silver wound in the green flesh of the land, and the slow, patient crawl of an ox cart, moving towards the market gate. From this height, you are closer to God than the bishop in his velvet chair. But God feels terribly silent today. You didn't sleep. A rattling cough that lives deep in your chest saw to that. It belongs to the town. It belongs to the ages. It has already forgotten your name. You look down at your hands, resting on your knees. They are splotched with the brown marks of age, the skin thin as parchment. They don't look like they could build a wall, let alone a miracle. A cool breeze blows from the west, rustling the new leaves on the linden trees. It feels, for a moment, like the great stone behemoth is taking its first breath without you. You are shaking hands with ghosts who are not yet born. They will stand where you are standing. They will run their own soft, uncalloused hands over this very stone. They will feel its coolness and wonder about the man who carved it. They will not know your name, or your sorrows, or your small, fierce joys. But they will know your work. You are a ghost, reaching forward through time, and your greeting is this cold, smooth, eternal stone. A boy, an apprentice no older than 14, brings you a skin of watered wine. They don't want a priest. They don't want questions. They just want it to be gone. The shovels move with a new urgency, and the dark, heavy earth rains down, obscuring the pale curve of the spine, filling the hollows of the eyes, burying the forgotten story once more. You stand there long after they have moved on, looking at the patch of disturbed ground. It is seamless again, just another square of mud in a muddy field. But you know what lies beneath. And a thought, cold and heavy as a burial stone, settles upon you. A defiance of the natural world. It took the lifetimes of your grandfather and his father to raise these walls, stone by agonizing stone. Men you never knew died falling from the scaffolding, their last sight this impossible geometry. All for this moment, for you. You cannot read. The priest's Latin is a holy drone, the words of the Bible a locked chest for which you have no key. But here, you are not blind. Here, you are not ignorant. The first toll of the curfew bell shatters the evening air, a cold iron sound that chases the last dregs of sunlight from the sky. It is not a gentle call to rest. It is an order, a command to extinguish your fire, to bar your door, to retreat from the world. You pull your thin cloak tighter and hurry through the emptying streets, a ghost among ghosts, the smell of damp earth and wood smoke clinging to you. They are cold from his purse, but they will be warm soon enough from the heat of your skin. They feel heavier than they should. 3 pieces of silver. Not a promise of future work, not a tally of debt, but a conclusion. Today is paid for. The transaction is complete. You nod, a gesture too small for the ache in your lower back, and turn away from the rising skeleton of God's house. You walk through the town's evening breath, a miasma of wood smoke, pig manure, and damp wool. You have chipped away hours of your life for a result that feels dead, lifeless. A shadow falls over your work. You don't have to look up to know who it is. The air itself seems to grow heavier, quieter, with the presence of old Thomas, the master mason. His breath is a shallow rasp, a sound like stones grinding together. You feel his gaze not on your work, but through it, into the very grain of the rock. The wind tries to kill you. It is a living thing up here, 100 feet above the mud and wattle world of men. It howls around the raw, unfinished skeleton of the bell tower, a bitter sermon promising a quick death on the cobblestones below. Your knuckles are bone white where you grit the scaffolding. The wood is slick with a morning mist that has not yet surrendered to the sun. A treacherous skin on the timbers that hold you between the heavens and the earth. Below, the town is a map of lives you will never touch.